Day 34 of my Irish coast cycle opened with me waking on White Strand. I was going to be cycling today all the way up past the Cliffs of Moher into the Burren, but I started off by popping across the road to say hi to the horses in the field on the other side. The beach itself was pretty grey and rough this morning as I was packing up my tent, so I was glad to be moving on. And there were a couple of hardy souls braving the water and going in for a swim. Otherwise it was quiet apart from I think one jogger. Here's my site after I've packed up. It's important to take the leave no trace principle seriously if you're wild camping, because we want to be able to continue to use spaces. Anyway, this morning I'm now on off to Doonbeg, a little loop of the coast. There's a nice castle here that's worth stopping at, picnic table if you wanted a breakfast snack. And then this road which rapidly degenerates into a swamp and it's totally impassable. So one navigation error there. Just left Doonbeg. I think I might have seen the Trump Hotel in the distance, it's off to the left, not 100% sure. Past a guy herding a flock of cows down the main road, to milk them, I presume, on a bicycle with a sheepdog. Not being completely as confident as the other sheepdogs I've seen on this trip. And just past somebody out walking another two sheepdogs, both of whom looked at me very curiously as I passed them on this relatively narrow road.
67 to minor road ahead.
This is my setup, by the way. Phone on the handlebars, which is handy, and that's the cycle travel app running on it, which basically turns the screen off. Which basically turns the screen off, etc. It's in use now. This minor road is very minor. Oh Jesus, look at it. You always get a bit worried with these that they're just going to vanish entirely. I mean, this is just gravel, isn't it? So that road ended up in thigh-high grass and then a swamp, so I had to turn back, and I'm currently navigating on spec along another side road, which is okay. It's got some grass in the middle, but I don't think it's going to turn into a swamp, and at least we can say it's got a pretty nice view to it. But yeah, that was This has happened to me a few times, where roads have just turned out to be totally unsuitable, and actually I have to get better at giving up earlier on them so I don't end up having to backtrack, because generally if the first part of the road is atrocious, it's not going to get any better until it connects to the next road up. But yeah, the diversion meant I actually passed the gates of Trump's Hotel, but I didn't stop for a photo. It's that wee tacky. Oh my god, I just went through a huge cloud of flies there. Be interesting to see if they come out in the video. Oh, look, this, by the way, is why I wear large glasses while cycling, because they stop insects flying into your eyes, which is about the worst thing that can happen if you do the fast downhill. There we have it. Jesus. And then a quick and very welcome pastry stop at Milton Malby. Nothing makes a croissant and coffee taste quite as good as a 27-kilometre cycle. Starting off at I think about 7:30 or 8. Builds the appetite. And the croissant's very good, it's almond. And from here it was onto some very hilly back roads, not too much traffic, and the descent into the town of Lahinch and the essential second and more substantial breakfast. Much more of a population around here, so the main roads are very busy. You'll want to get off them and take those quiet back roads with incredible hills. Today's, well, that should have been obvious observation is that the problem with cycling to the Cliffs of Moher is it means you've got to cycle to the top of the Cliff of Moher, which I've just done. Hey, I mean, worth it for the ground, but bloody hell, that's quite a hill. You can get up off the main road through the network of local roads, but be warned, if you do it, there's a hell of a steep hill on the way up. One of the very, very few times I've ever had to get over and push. But I made it. Oh, and now we have a steep hill coming down. Have a look at this. The main official access to the cliffs is unfortunately very expensive. I think it's about €12 per person, and that includes cyclists. However, there is a couple of enterprising farmers nearby who give access for about a £5. I used Guerins Path, and the guy running the booth kept an eye on the bike while I went off and took a long walk along the cliffs. So I didn't resent that £5 at all. I think at the southern end there are some points you can access freely and then walk along the cliff from there. However, I'm not sure you'll find somewhere to lock a bike safely. And while I didn't do this myself on my trip, I think that southern access has been used by a couple of cycle tourists to bring their bikes onto the cliff top path and to actually wild camp on top of the cliffs overnight. I'm not sure how advisable that is in anything but the calmest of weather. It's extremely exposed up here, but it's certainly something that others have done in the past. It is definitely worth stopping to have a look. People go on day trips all the way from Dublin and back just to look at the cliff. So if you're cycling right past, it would be a shame not to divert slightly and pop in, have a look. They're quite stunning, and even just the noise is impressive. Yeah, so the bit around the Cliffs of Moher Centre is quite unpleasant because there's a lot of traffic and a lot of coaches. But as you're heading in the Lisdoonvarna direction, about 2 kilometres down the hill, there's a left turn which brings you onto this side road, which I think runs down to Doolin, so it's a lot more pleasant. The descent on the other one is quite exciting because it's a very good quality road, so you can get quite a bit of speed up on it, whereas this one is quite bumpy. I don't think I'd want to do a lot of speed on this even if I wasn't cycling with one hand. It's also got gravel and potholes, but and a nice view, and some cows. So it's all good. Shortly after taking this photo, I hit a very steep descent on a corkscrew hill overlooked by a fantastic castle. However, that was a little too exciting to actually take pictures. I then stopped for a couple of pints in Doolin, got the batteries charged while I drank them, and then headed on to the flaggy shore in the Burren. This is actually one of my favourite spots in the entirety of Ireland. The Burren is this large area of exposed limestone, a karst landscape. It's almost like a desert in parts when you look at it, despite the heavy rainfall that hits this coast all the time. But it's stunning, and also if you're into caving, it's riddled with caves. So I'm now cycling through my favourite landscape in Ireland and possibly my favourite landscape anywhere, the Burren in County Clare. When I was much younger, I used to do caving down here quite regularly, so I was quite familiar with it. And I haven't really been back very often, in fact really only once, so it's pretty interesting to be back after all these years. And of course the rocks haven't changed at all. Yeah. Not quite the only cyclist, obviously. I'm completely shot legs wise. all the kilometres have caught up with me. I'm thinking about the 450 kilometre mark at this point. So I just had a break and a couple of pints and got back, did another 15k, and I'm already feeling wrecked, so I'm going to stop for a meal just up the road from here. And I'm camping quite nearby, and tomorrow is my last day, and it's only a short distance before I'm being picked up by some friends, so it'll all be grand. All these months later, I can still remember
that sense of disappointment. I was really looking forward to a meal in this pub in the middle of nowhere that had a nice menu, and I'd looked at its webpage, and that I had been as a teenager. It's called O'Donoghue's. But then when I got there, I discovered it was shut. It was shut. I had nothing, and I had very little food with me, and I was in the middle of nowhere. So I headed a couple of kilometres down the road to the beautiful Fanore beach and put my emergency plan into action, which is a couple of packets of ramen. Instant noodles or ramen are a great emergency reserve if there is a danger of something like this happening and there being no food available, because they weigh next to nothing, and providing you have water, they're easy to cook, they don't require much fuel. Travelling prior to the tourist season means much lighter traffic in Ireland. It does have the disadvantage that in isolated rural areas, a lot of pubs and restaurants will either not be open or won't yet have full opening hours. So no need to feel sorry for me. I did also have a small reserve of wine, so again I got to spend some time in this absolutely wonderful location, watching the sunset and chilling out, putting my tent up and having probably one of the better night's sleep, because I was just physically exhausted at this point. And so that ends day 34 of the Irish Coast Cycle. I hope you're enjoying my travels. Give the channel a follow if you haven't already, and please do give this video a thumbs up so it reaches out to more people.